Now we know that what are higher order functions. Let's actually create our own to demonstrate how they work. So in this lecture, we are going to create a function that accepts other functions as an input. Before start, just try two generic functions that do simple string transformations. Let's write that const. I'm calling here one word and that is equal function. And this will simply replace all the spaces in a word. And in this function, I'm giving string. Now let's return the string and string dot replace. So here string dot replace and then we are going to select all the spaces. And remember that we need to use this regular expression with this G flag, like write small g and then replace them with an empty string. So for that, give an empty string and then here write we'd want to convert this to lowercase. So for that, to lowercase. And so this function will simply work anywhere in our code with any string. Here it takes a one string and then it returns a new one without any spaces in it. And then now let's create another function. Const give here upper first word. Then function which also takes in a string. Here these two functions that will later be functions so that we pass in into another functions. So we first need these. Let's write here const. Here why we are writing this function means it will simply transform the first word of the input string to uppercase. So for that we first need to split the string. Here this is equal const equal str dot split. So now give an empty string. Then we will take the results and restructure it into a first word. So write here first and remaining all in others. And now let's return the array. Return and then here give the first. So that's first to be uppercase. For that let's write to uppercase and then we're using the spread operator for all others. And then write dot join. Then give here empty string. Here we used the spread operator and destructive assignment and this is actually the rest pattern. And so now we have these two generic functions and now we can create our high order function. That function will be called a transformer. Right here const transformer and then that is equal. This function will take in also a string. So write here function and then string. Here I am giving the second argument as a function. Now therefore this is a high order function. So this is what we are discussed in the last lecture. This is the higher order function. Now let's see that how we call this function that I like to do it in many times. Let's call here transformer and then give here JavaScript is the best and upper first word. So here this is the first parameter and this is the second parameter. So basically what I want the transformer function Now to do with this string is to transform the string using this function here that we created in the starting of the lecture. And now here we remember that how we are only passing in the function value itself. Here we are not calling this function. We are only passing in it, and it will be to transform a function calling this function. So let's actually do that. Here write console.log transformed string. And so this is our actual expression that we will now call the function inside of the transformer function. So this upper first word is now fn, right? So give here fn and then with the past in string. So write that here in fn string. Before that, let's actually call the original string also console.log original string, that is simply give str. Then also write here console.log transformed by, here write dollar, and again we are taking function, which means that this high order transformer gets as an input, and then with this function we can read the name property. Now let's see the result. Here we see that the original string what we have given JavaScript is the best, and then the transformed string, that is transformed the first word that to upper what we have given, this upper first word to uppercase, the first word to uppercase, so that is also happened. And so we see that it was transformed by upper first word, so that is fn name as the property says. Here we can actually use any functioning that we have in JavaScript. Now let's try the same for the other function. Let's copy then paste. Here I am changing this to one word. Then see the result. Let's see the result. We get that this is transformed by one word, and so here we see the transformed string is, we got the only one word. So this is the original string and we got that one word because of we have given the one word. Let's recap all these. We are calling the transformer function, and into that function we are passing the callback function. And also remember that what we call these functions that we pass. So here these two means callback functions. That's because we do not call them ourselves, but instead we call JavaScript to basically tell them later. But in this case, calling them later right here. So this one, and it is the transformer that will call these callback functions, and the callback functions here are of course called fn. So that's the name of the function here that we then have to call. And in fact, that is exactly the same idea that we are already talked about using the add event listener function. So now let's write here, create a const, create a function const. I'm giving here high 5, that is equal function. And then here I am calling something to console.log, giving here high. Now let's say that document.body.add event listener, and then give click high 5. We are going to learn about this later. Here all about is add event listener is a transformer function that we pass a callback function. So this callback function is also called the event handler or event listener. So here just remember that this is the callback function and this is the higher order function. So this one is just like our transformer function. This one is like one word or upper first word. Now let's see the result. That means that when we click on the body, we get hi. So this is how this works. So only then the callback is really called, and there are many other examples in this JavaScript, and this concept of callback functions is used all the time in JavaScript functions. Now here let's create an example that in a race we have some members. Here give that name Priya, Maya, and then Ria. Here I am giving this for each, and then giving here hi-fi callback function. Now let's reload. Here we have that 3 times of hi. That means that we have that 3 members. So for that reason we have 3 times of hi. And so for each of them this callback will be called. And so therefore we have 3 waving sphere. We will learn this for each method in the next lectures. What we have done here means we use the concept of a callback function. So these are the examples of why JavaScript uses callback all the time. So this callback is very important in this JavaScript. And so here the first big advantage is that it makes it easy to split up our code into more reusable and interconnected parts. These callback functions allows us to create abstraction. So basically what is this abstraction means? We hide the details of some code implementation because we don't really care about all the details, and this allows us to think about problems at a higher, more abstract level. And so that's why it is called an abstraction. So coming back to our example, this transformer function is a function does not care at all. Because of that, how the string is transformed, it doesn't care about this level of details. But all that wants to do is to transform a string. Here this higher order function operates at a higher level of abstraction, this transformer, and also leaving the low level details to these low level functions. These are not really called higher order or low level functions. So understanding this is absolutely crucial for our starting process. For better idea, write your own example of something that you see in the real world using the same concept as something else. And so here are the built-in functions and add event listener and for each. These callback functions are so important and so useful because we use them to tell these functions what exactly they should do. For example, add event listener on its own would have no idea of what to do whenever the click event happens here. And so that's why we pass the callback function here to tell the add event listener function exactly what to do. So this add event listener is a high order function with a high level of abstraction. Here this high 5 is a more lower level of abstraction. Please take a minute to review all these and build an example of your own. So this is all about the session. We'll continue in the next. Thank you.